When games kick off this weekend, we'll officially be in November, meaning we're in the final stretch of the college football season. I don't know where the season is gone, but we have 1 month left, and this next month is going to be truly chaotic. We had another fantastic weekend of games this past week, and here is my top 25 after week 9 of the college football season. Before we get to today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel, so make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. Staying at number 1 is Oregon, who had a very comfortable victory over number 20 Illinois. They took down the Fighting Illini 38-9. This game was never really close, as Oregon had a 32-point lead entering the half. Dillon Gabriel had another great game as he threw for just under 300 yards with 3 passing touchdowns. He also added a touchdown on the ground as well. We know Oregon has an explosive offense, considering they had over 500 yards of total offense for the game, but it was their defense that was really impressive in this one. They held Illinois to only 9 points and under 300 yards of total offense. Georgia was off this weekend, so here's where I got them ranked. It was looking like Penn State was going to be on upset watch in this game as they entered the fourth quarter on the road at Wisconsin up by only 1 point, but they outscored the Badgers 14-0 in the fourth quarter and won by 15. Drew Aller was great in the game as he threw for 150 yards with a touchdown, but he left with an injury. As of right now, I don't think there's an update on his injury, so I'm not sure what his status is moving forward, but if Penn State isn't able to have Aller as their starting quarterback, it will be interesting to see how they fare the rest of the way. This one was a little too close for comfort for Ohio State as they took down Nebraska 21-17. The Buckeyes were a 26-point favorite in this game, so the fact that Nebraska had a chance to win this in the fourth quarter, that's a little bit concerning for the Buckeyes. Will Howard did all he could as he completed 13 of 16 passes for 220 yards with 3 passing touchdowns. The Buckeyes couldn't get anything going on the ground as they ran for only 64 yards on 31 attempts. For the game, Ohio State had only 11 first downs and they went 1 of 10 on third down. You're not going to win many games by having 285 total yards of offense, but luckily for Ohio State, Nebraska's offense wasn't all that great in this one either. For the first time in what seems like weeks, Miami had a pretty easy victory as they took down Florida State 36-14. Cam Ward had a quiet day and probably his worst game of the season as he completed 22 of 35 passes for only 200 yards with no passing touchdowns. Luckily for Miami, they didn't need him at all. Damian Martinez ran for 150 yards with 2 rushing scores, while Mark Fletcher ran for 70 yards and had a rushing score as well. Texas A&M continues to be one of my biggest surprises this year as they took down number 8 LSU in dominating fashion, winning 38-23. Now this game wasn't looking good for the Aggies in the first half as they trailed 17-7, but they outscored LSU 31-6 in the second half. Connor Wigman was terrible as he completed only 6 of 18 passes for 64 yards. Luckily for the Aggies, all of their damage came on the ground as they ran for 250 yards as a team with 5 combined rushing scores. It was a rough start to the season for Texas A&M, but they've now won 7 consecutive games and they're the only team in the SEC that has yet to lose a game in conference play. Considering how easy the rest of their schedule looks, if Texas A&M is able to avoid some upsets, it looks like they're going to be playing in the SEC title game and playing for a potential playoff spot. Another week, another victory for BYU, who is now 8-0 on the season after their 37-24 win at UCF. Jake Retzlaff continues to be great for BYU as he threw for 230 yards with 2 passing touchdowns while adding 40 yards on the ground with a rushing score as well. As a team, BYU ran for over 250 yards and had 2 rushing scores. Speaking of undefeated teams, Indiana is now 8-0 on the season after their 31-17 victory over Washington. The Hoosiers were missing their star quarterback Curtis Rourke, but backup quarterback Taven Jackson did the job. He threw for 125 yards and had a passing touchdown while adding a touchdown on the ground as well. This wasn't the Indiana offense we've grown accustomed to this year as they had only 300 yards of total offense, but they were able to hold the Washington offense in check. The Huskies had only 16 first downs and just over 300 yards of total offense. I say this every week, but shout out to that guy in my comment section who said Indiana would win 10 games back in the summer during my hot take series. You're 2 wins away from having the best hot take of the entire year. Iowa State was off this weekend, so here's where I got them ranked. Clemson was also off this weekend, here's where I got them ranked as well. Notre Dame had probably the most dominating victory of the entire weekend as they took down number 24 Navy 51-14. Notre Dame was a pretty big favorite as the spread in this game was 14 points, but I don't think anybody expected them to dominate Navy in this fashion. Riley Leonard threw for just under 200 yards with 2 passing touchdowns while adding 100 yards on the ground with a rushing score. As a team, Notre Dame ran for 265 yards, averaging 7 yards a carry with 4 rushing scores. It was a dominating victory for Notre Dame, who continues to add more of these games to their great resume. Tennessee was off this weekend, so here's where I got them ranked. Despite being a 17-point favorite, Texas was on the verge of being upset against Vanderbilt as they won by only 3 points. Quinn Ewers threw for just under 300 yards with 3 passing touchdowns, but he did have 2 interceptions. Texas was able to jump ahead in this game 21-7, but the rest of the way, they were outscored by Vanderbilt 17-6. They didn't score a touchdown over the final 35 minutes of this game. The more I've thought about it, I have no problem having Texas ranked this low, because if you look at their resume as of right now, they have no impressive victories whatsoever. The only reason they're ranked so high in the AP poll is because of what many people are expecting out of them this year. They've played only one good team up until this point, I guess maybe 2 if you want to put Vanderbilt on there, but the only time they played a really good opponent, they got blown out. So Texas doesn't have a great resume. They almost lost to Vanderbilt this weekend, so that's why I have them so low compared to the AP poll. Before we get to the rest of my rankings, I'd like to share with you guys how you can make the college football season more exciting and even win some money. I've partnered with Underdog Fantasy to bring you this amazing deal. If you download the Underdog Fantasy app and use promo code Harris, they'll match your first deposit up to $1,000. That's right, they're giving you up to $1,000 of free money. You can choose your favorite players from every game and decide whether or not they'll go higher or lower than their projections. So to add a little extra excitement to every game and win some money, make sure to use promo code Harris for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000 at Underdog Fantasy. You guys can also sign up using the link in my description as well. Kansas State was on upset watch as they entered the 4th quarter trailing to Kansas, but they were able to pull off the 2-point victory. Avery Johnson continues to look better every week as he threw for 250 yards with 2 passing touchdowns while adding 70 yards on the ground with a rushing score as well. It wasn't a pretty victory, but a win is still a win, and the Wildcats are now 7-1 on the season. As of right now, they're currently tied for 3rd in the Big 12 standings. It was looking good for LSU in the first half as they were up by 10, but they were outscored by 25 points in the second half in their loss to Texas A&M. Garrett Nussmeier did all he could as he threw for over 400 yards with 2 passing touchdowns, and he threw the ball 50 times, but he did have 3 costly interceptions that ultimately hurt LSU in this game. They got nothing on the ground as they ran for only 35 yards, averaging 1.6 yards per rushing attempt. In what seems like the first time in quite a while, Alabama had a dominating victory as they took down number 21 Missouri 34-0. Jalen Milroe threw for over 200 yards and added 50 yards on the ground with a rushing score. As a team, Alabama ran for over 270 yards, averaging 7.3 yards per attempt with 4 rushing scores. Although they scored plenty of points, their defense is what really stood out as they held this Missouri Tigers team to no points. Missouri had only 15 first downs for the day and 240 yards of total offense while going 3 of 13 on 3rd down. Also, a quick thing on Missouri, they were ranked number 21 entering this game. They lost by 34 points, and the AP poll somehow still has them ranked inside the top 25. Spoiler alert, I don't have the Tigers ranked inside my top 25, but I just wanted to briefly mention that. How is that possible? How can you be ranked 21, lose by 34, and still remain in the top 25 the next week? This was a massive game for Boise State as they took down UNLV 29-24. I talked about this game last week as one of the biggest games of the entire college football season up until this point, and the reason for that is because whoever would have won this game would have been in the driver's seat of being the Group of 5 representative in the college football playoff. Well, by picking up this victory, Boise State is now in cruise control, and if they don't lose the game the rest of the way, they are going to be a playoff team. Maddox Madsen threw for 200 yards with a passing touchdown while adding 60 yards on the ground with a rushing score. Ashton Jeanty had his air quote worst game of the year as he ran for only 130 yards with a rushing touchdown. This is one of the craziest box scores you're ever going to see. Pittsburgh defeated Syracuse 41-13. Yet, when looking at the numbers, it's hard to believe they won this game by 28 28 points. For the game, Pittsburgh finished with only 13 first downs, they went 2 of 9 on third down, and they had only 217 yards of total offense. Not to mention, they had the ball for only 19 minutes. The reason for that? Well, Syracuse quarterback Kyle McCord had 5 interceptions, including 3 pick sixes. I mean, the Pittsburgh offense didn't even really need to do anything this game at all. They were up by so many points late in the fourth quarter, but because they hadn't really had the ball at any point, they were still running plays as if this game was tied. Pittsburgh is now 7-0 on the season, and they're one of 4 ACC teams that are undefeated in conference play. Speaking of an ACC team that's undefeated in conference play, SMU won a thriller in overtime against Duke 28-27. Kevin Jennings had 300 yards of total offense with 2 touchdowns, but he did have 3 interceptions that almost lost SMU the game. As a team, the Mustangs ran for over 200 yards and had 3 rushing scores. This is their first season in the ACC, and I'm sure the expectations weren't all that high, but SMU is making a legitimate run at playing in the ACC title game and being a legitimate playoff team this year. Ole Miss was on upset watch, but the Rebels outscored the Sooners 16-0 in the second half and finished with a comfortable victory. Jackson Dart threw for over 300 yards with a passing touchdown while adding 30 yards on the ground. It wasn't the typical game we've grown accustomed to for this Ole Miss offense, but their defense was able to hold Oklahoma in check and hold them scoreless in the second half. Army was off this weekend, so here's where I got them ranked. With the Pac-12 gone, nobody's paying attention to that 2-team conference, but Washington State has been phenomenal this year as they're now 7-1 on the season after their win at San Diego State. John Mateer continues to be one of the more slept-on quarterbacks in the entire nation as he threw for 250 yards with 2 passing touchdowns while leading the team on the ground with 40 rushing yards and 2 rushing scores. Now, Washington State doesn't have a top 25 victory this year, so the resume isn't all that great, but hey, they're still 7-1 and they're not playing crap teams every week. Colorado just continues to get better and better each week as they're now bowl eligible with their 34-23 victory over Cincinnati. Shedeur Sanders had another fantastic performance, completing 25 of 30 passes for 320 yards with 2 passing touchdowns. He also added a touchdown on the ground as well. Meanwhile, Travis Hunter had another fantastic day as he caught 9 passes for 150 yards with 2 passing touchdowns. If it wasn't for their last-second loss to Kansas State a couple weeks ago, Colorado would probably be ranked inside the top 15 of the actual AP poll, and more people would be talking about them as a potential playoff team. Well, they're still alive in the playoff hunt as they're currently tied for 3rd in the Big 12 with a 4-1 record in conference play. After starting their season 1-2, Tulane has now won 5 consecutive games, and they're a potential sleeper to be the Group of 5 representative in the college football playoff. They took down North Texas 45-37. Quarterback Darian Mensah only threw the ball 13 times, but he threw for 175 yards with 3 passing touchdowns. As a team, the Green Wave ran for 300 yards with 3 rushing touchdowns. Wrapping up today's top 25 is another team that could be potentially playoff bound in the Memphis Tigers. They took down Charlotte 33-28, moving to 7-1 on the season. The only reason I don't have Memphis ranked higher is because they're currently 3-1 in conference play, so they're currently sitting behind Army, Navy, and Tulane in the standings. I'll include Memphis in my playoff video later this week, but the Tigers are 7-1 and they've been playing like one of the better teams in college football the last month. Well, that wraps it up for today's top 25. What were your thoughts on the rankings? Was there a team I had ranked too high, or a team that was ranked too low, or a team that I didn't include that should have been on this list? Whoever it is, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos all season long, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm, and it helps share the video and my channel with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.